Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So we are all sitting in this room and we are looking at each other, we are looking at the earth, we are looking at the room, and all of it seems very real to us, right? If I'm seeing Mansi sitting there, she is sitting there, or Doddy sitting there, or whoever. But that is to our seeing. There is another seeing which is quite different from what we see with our seeing. And the Vedas call it the Chakshuscha Chakshu, the eye within the eye. The eye that opens when we awaken from our ignorance. And the vision we see when that happens is so completely different from what we are seeing now. And Sri Aurobindo calls this Maya. Now, Maya is not illusion as most people think. Sri Aurobindo says Maya is the capacity of the infinite to appear finite. So Malvika sitting there is actually an infinite consciousness, but to my seeing, because of Maya and my vision, she's appearing to be finite. She's appearing to be limited. But actually, she's a consciousness which is infinite, both into the past, both into the future. As is the floor, as is the ceiling, as is everything else. But we don't see that. So I had uh, uh, the school I teach in, they write yoga tests and exams. So I'd asked an question in the yoga test that if your sister does better than you in a competition, how will you use spiritual knowledge to get over feeling inadequate about it? So normally most children wrote everything's Brahman, I'm also my sister, which is acceptable. But one child wrote an answer I hadn't thought of myself, and I found it so brilliant. She said that Maya tells me that everything is an infinite consciousness appearing to be finite. So I'm actually an infinite consciousness, and in the infinity of my being, how will it matter if in this instant my sister or anyone did better than me? Because we are in a limited time frame, in that time frame, everything seems magnified. But if we live with the sense of infinity, I have always been, I will never not be, then all the little things that upset us so much in the moment, they can't upset us. Because if you think what's looking so big now, even 5 years later, you won't care about it. And if you think 50 years later, 50,000 years later, 50 millennia later, that's how much you'll continue to be. So it won't really matter. So, and also there was one scientist, a neuroscientist, Jill Bolt Taylor. She gave a beautiful TED talk called The Stroke of Insight. And she had a brain stroke where she lost functioning of the left side of her brain. Now, left side is your rational brain, and the right side is usually the creative, intuitive brain. So when her left side stopped functioning, she says she fell into an utter nirvanic bliss. And she says, I actually saw that everything was one without a second. It's our rational mind that keeps dividing. Malvika's outline ends there, Isha begins there, etc., etc. But when the rational mind is shut down, we see reality as it is, as Jill Bolt Taylor did. And in the PDF, and I've included this thing. In May 1921, American polymath is somebody who's good at many things, art and science. Walter Russell entered a 39-day coma-like state, during which he claimed to have accessed the source of all knowledge. So again, when the thinking mind is shut down, like Jill Bolt Taylor, even Walter Russell, access the source of all knowledge. Upon awakening, he frantically wrote down what he had seen, pages filled with philosophical, scientific, and spiritual revelations that would later form the foundations of his manuscript, The Universal One. So, both Walter Russell and Jill Bolt Taylor, in their altered state of consciousness, without anyone telling them, they all recognize reality as one continuum, as a consciousness of one without a second. Though he sent his findings to 500 leading minds of the time, nearly all dismissed him as mad except one, Nikola Tesla, the famous scientist. The visionary inventor was so struck by Russell's insights that he urged him to seal the work away for 1,000 years, insisting that humanity was not ready for this. Walter Russell's revelations reimagined the very structure of reality. He argued that matter was not solid but crystallized light, slowed down by thought, that everything around us, from rocks to human bodies, was composed of light patterns. Somewhere in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo writes, matter, a firm density of the soul. As if soul, which is light, if it becomes dense, it becomes matter. Matter is a firm density of the soul. So Walter Russell has discovered the same thing in his coma state. He believed the universe was fundamentally mental, not material, and that all things moved in rhythmic cycles, expansion and contraction like breath. He dismissed opposites like good and evil as illusions, asserting instead that everything sought harmony and balance. To Russell, death wasn't an end, but the release of compressed light returning to its source. How beautiful! Death is not an end, but a release of compressed light. In just now, I am compressed light, so are you. When we die, the compressed light returns to its source. Even time, he claimed, wasn't linear but spiral, where past, present, and future coexisted. These ideas were radically ahead of their time, blending metaphysics, wave dynamics, and a deep sense of universal unity. Health, in his view, was the natural rhythm of the body, and disease was simply a disruption of that flow. He sounds so much like Sri Aurobindo. He says health is a natural rhythm of the body, and disease a disruption of that flow. Sri Aurobindo says that you fall ill when an inner imbalance comes in some part of your consciousness. Though ignored or ridiculed during his lifetime, Russell's work now draws new attention in an era where quantum physics and consciousness studies begin to echo the same questions. Now, this was what somebody discovered in his own experience. In so many ways, Savitri speaks about the same thing as poetry. So this is page 23 of Savitri, where Sri Aurobindo writes, this bodily appearance is not all. What I am is not all. What you're seeing me is the tip of the iceberg that I really am. The form deceives. The person is a mask. Hid deep in men, celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years, an incognito of the imperishable. Incognito is when I travel in a way that nobody can recognize me. I go in disguise. So, man is a fragile ship going through the seas of the years as an incognito in a way that nobody can recognize the truth of man is, of the imperishable. Look at his play of words. Man, his fragile ship, each of us feels so fragile, right? So vulnerable. And yet, each of us is an incognito of the imperishable. We can never ever perish. A spirit that is a flame of God abides. In each of us, there is a spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight. So, God, who is the artist of his own beauty and delight? Who is? No, God. God is the artist of his own beauty and delight. Each of us is his artwork, and he is the artist of his own beauty and delight. Immortal in our mortal poverty. Nobody can play with words like Sri Aurobindo. What a marvelous line. Immortal in our mortal poverty. In our mortal living, we feel poor in affection, poor in this, poor in that. And that is the mortal poverty. We feel short of time, whatever. But he is immortal in our mortal poverty. This sculptor of the forms of the infinite. So this is again God. He's the sculptor of the forms of infinite. We said earlier, no, what Sri Aurobindo says, Maya is the capacity of the infinite to appear finite. So, this sculptor of the forms of the infinite. Now, how can you sculpt infinite into forms? You can't. No, an infinite consciousness, the moment you make it a form, it's limited, it's finite. But God is that magician who can sculpt forms of the infinite. The screened and unrecognized inhabitant. So, this inhabitant who is screened, we can't see him, we can't recognize him, but he is there inside everything. This screened and unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries. That means he is the one who starts his own veiled, initiate is one who starts his own veiled mysteries, hides in a small dumb seed his cosmic thought, in the mute strength of the occult idea, in the quiet strength of the hidden idea of God being present in all things, determining predestined shape and act, passenger from life to life. So, this flame of God within us is the passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, changing his image self from form to form. He regards the icon growing by his gaze. So, icon is a great figure. So, everyone starts small and everyone has God in him, and God regards the icon growing by his gaze. And in the worm foresees the coming God. And that's why when you have God vision, you can't judge anything. You become incapable of judgment because you don't take the finite appearance of things very seriously. It's a worm, but its destiny is to become a God whenever. So, in everything, it's seen as a momentary, temporary appearance. It's not the full statement on the person. So, you can't take it like I shared in the beginning, that girl who answered that she would overcome her inadequacy when somebody does better than her by remembering that she's an infinite consciousness, and in the infinity of her being, this is one small speck, it won't matter. So, same is true for everyone else. Even if I judge this person has done this or done that, it's a dot in the infinity of that person. I don't take that action as the sum total of what that person is. But when we are human beings, we take that short span of what the person is as the sum total of what he is. That's where we often go wrong. He regards the icon growing by his gaze, and in the worm foresees the coming God. Inner imbalances are negative thought patterns, negative emotional patterns, many causes. It could be from the environment, it could be from within us. So that's what immortal in our mortal poverty. So once we get that sense of immortality within us, we don't remain so scared of what will happen to us. Right now, we are very scared because we feel limited. We live with what he calls mortal poverty. I'll run out of time, I'll run out of money, I'll run out of affection. But wait, I'd just like to read out one moment. No, I don't have that. So maybe next time. Okay, let's continue. Now, this is a beautiful aphorism of Sri Aurobindo. It's aphorism 7. What men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. So precise. What you and I call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. So Adya sitting here is an appearance, and to my reason it makes sense that this is Adya. She's sitting here, she's worn a white kurta, etc., etc. And to me, this form is Adya. But that's what I call knowledge. What men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. But actually, this is not Adya, this is the cosmos sitting here. But my reason has convinced me that it's Adya sitting here, right? So Sri Aurobindo is saying what men call knowledge is the reasoned acceptance of false appearances. Wisdom looks behind the veil and sees. So that chakshushcha chakshu we spoke about at the beginning, the eye behind the eye, wisdom looks behind the veil and sees. Reason divides, fixes details and contrasts them. Wisdom unifies, marries contrasts in a single harmony. Just in 3 lines, how beautifully he summed it up. So he's saying what men call knowledge is reasonable, but it's a reasonable acceptance of false appearance. But wisdom looks behind the veil, like for Jill Bolt Taylor, who I spoke about at the beginning, when she had her stroke and her left brain shut down, then knowledge shut down. She lost all her, and then what arose was wisdom. She saw that everything was one. Reason divides, fixes, details, and contrasts them. Wisdom unifies, marries, contrasts in a single harmony. So it was so interesting. Just last week, I'd taken some children to Pondicherry, teenagers. And the second, at night, we always go to the Samadhi. So the second night, one girl came and told me that I want to ask you, something happened to me at the Samadhi last night, and I want to know if it's good or bad. So I said, what happened? She's saying, I was just sitting and suddenly my thoughts vanished. In fact, it was such a blank that even when I tried to think, I couldn't think. And that made me panic. I tried very hard to remember the Yoga Sutras we'd studied or whatever, but it was like I just didn't have thought available to me. Now, that makes you panic because you feel you are because of thought. The great falsehood, I think, therefore I am, not true. I am, therefore I think. So she read with mother's grace, she got that experience of I am. But to her, the real thing was thought, and this was something unusual. But actually, that is the real thing, and thought is a sort of illusory thing that we live with. So, all that Sri Aurobindo writes about knowledge, reason, wisdom is said in order to bring us out of the rut of conventional thinking and, if possible, make us perceive the reality behind appearances. So, Mother is commenting on his aphorism, where he says what men call knowledge is reasoned acceptance of false appearances. So, Mother is saying that whatever Sri Aurobindo writes about knowledge and reason, it's to break our mental conventions, to take us out of rigid thinking and belief in us thought structures, and make us perceive the reality behind appearances. As a general rule, with a few very rare exceptions, men are content to observe more or less accurately everything that happens around them, and sometimes within themselves, and to classify all these observations according to one superficial system of logic or another. And they call this organization, these systems, knowledge. It has never occurred to them. They have not even begun to perceive that all the things they see, touch, feel, experience are false appearances and not reality at all. The constant general argument is, but I see it, I touch it, I feel it. Consequently, it's true. They should, on the contrary, tell themselves, I see it, I touch it, I feel it. Consequently, it's false. Can we do that? For us, I see this, I touch this, I feel this, it's true. But mother's saying that on the contrary, you should tell yourself, I see this, I touch this, I feel this, therefore it is false. We are the opposite poles, and there is no way of coming to an understanding. For Sri Aurobindo, true knowledge is precisely knowledge by identity, and wisdom is the state one achieves when one is in this true knowledge. So he's saying the knowledge is true knowledge is not what your senses tell you or what people tell you. True knowledge is knowledge by identity. When you're quiet and when you become one with something, that's the time you know everything about it as knowledge by identity. And wisdom is the state one achieves when one is in this true knowledge. He says it here, wisdom looks behind the veil of false appearances and sees the reality behind it. And Sri Aurobindo emphasizes that when one defines something with the superficial outer knowledge, it is always in opposition to something else. It always by means of a contrast that one explains what one sees, feels, touches, and does not understand. Reason, so it's like if I know light, I know it because of darkness. When there is darkness, by contrast, I know there's light. So by mother saying that reason always knows things by opposites, by contrasts. Reason always sets one thing against another. I know plus because I know minus. If I didn't know subtraction, I wouldn't know addition. I know good because I know bad. People whose thought and reason are clear see all the differences between things. It is rather remarkable that reason can only work through differences. It is because one perceives the difference between this and that, one act and another, one object and another, that one makes decisions and reason works. So reason is always by differences, na? If you look at anything you've reasoned out, it's always because you're juxtaposing opposites, you're contrasting. But it is precisely true knowledge, knowledge by identity, and the wisdom which results from it, that always see the point where all apparently contradictory things harmonize, complement each other, form a perfectly coherent, coordinated whole. And naturally, that changes entirely the point of view, the perception, the consequences in action. So, the way beings like Mother and Sri Aurobindo lived, it was so completely different. For example, whenever anyone used to go to the mother always used to do pranam to them. And one devotee told her, Mother, we should do pranam to you, which of course we do, but you please don't do pranam to us. So she said, you don't understand anything. I'm not doing pranam to this body outline. With my vision, I'm seeing the divine in each being. And I'm doing pranam to the divine in each one of you. Which, and in fact, our Indian life is so based in spirituality. A hello or a hi means nothing. But India, when we do namaste, it means the divine in you is bowing to the divine in me is bowing to the divine in you. And if we start a conversation like that, like Mother used to do with everyone, first she used to connect with the divine in the person, then how much less the chances are of disharmony, no? We get into conflict with people because we are only seeing the outer behavior and outer form. But if we constantly held this vision that everything is the divine, never mind how this person's behaving. Remember that line in Savitri, in the worm foresees the god to come. Your behavior may be insect like and wormy, but do I have the faith that you also are God? And someday in your form also God will manifest in a way that nothing in me can deny it. So, but it is precisely true knowledge, knowledge by identity, and the wisdom which results from it, that always sees the point where all apparently contradictory things harmonize, complement each other, form a perfectly coherent, coordinated whole. And naturally, that changes entirely the point of view, the perception, and the consequences in action. The first, absolutely indispensable step is not to repeat more or less mechanically and without quite knowing what you're saying that appearances are false. You say it because Sri Aurobindo has told us so, but without really understanding it. And yet, when you want to understand something, you continue to look, to observe, to touch, to taste, to feel, because you feel there are no other means of observation. It is only when you had the experience of the reversal of consciousness, Mother uses this term reversal of consciousness, when there's a total reversal in your consciousness. Instead of looking at the world through the mind, you look at the world through the chakshushcha chakshu, the eye within the eye. Then you see the truth of things. When you have gone beyond these things, when you can feel, experience in the most concrete manner the illusory appearance that you are able to understand. But unless you have had the experience, you can read all the aphorisms, repeat and learn them, have faith in them, and still not perceive. They have no reality for you. All these appearances remain the only way of coming into contact with the other world and of becoming aware of what it is. And sometimes you can spend a whole lifetime learning how things are in their appearance and be considered very cultured, very intelligent, highly knowledgeable when you have observed all this in detail and remembered all that you have observed or learned. Strictly speaking, mother says, you can, when you have worked hard, have some slight effect on these appearances, change them a little. This is how, through science, you learn to manipulate matter. No, now we have learned to inject clouds with something to make them rain somewhere. We have learned to manipulate matter a little bit. But there is no true change and there is no true power. And when you are in that state, you are wholly convinced that there is nothing you can do to change your character. You feel trapped in a kind of fatalism that weighs you down. You know neither whence nor how. You are born like this, in such and such a place, into such and such an environment, with such and such a character, and you get through life as best you can, adapting to things without having much influence on them and trying to mitigate the drawbacks of your own character without having the power to transform it. This rings a bell, no? We all feel like that. I'm trapped. I'm born under these circumstances. I'm born with this nature. I'm trying to navigate my life with very little control over the waters through which I'm navigating. I'm stuck with the people around me, with the person I am, and I'm just doing my best and feeling like I'm failing sometimes. So beautifully, she summed it up. You feel caught in a net. You are the slave of something of which you are unaware. You are the plaything of circumstances, of unknown forces, of a will you do not submit to, but which constrains you. Even the most rebellious are slaves. Even those of us who rebel against life, we are still slaves because we keep rebelling, but we are still caught in the net. Because the only thing that liberates you is precisely the act of passing behind the veil and discovering what lies behind it. The veil of thought, the veil of mental constructs, the veil of rigid structures and conditionings that all of us are stuck in. Once you have seen, you know who you are, and once you have established your true identity, you have the key to true transformation. We feel freedom is we should be allowed to do what we want to do. But so many people who do what they want to do are still not happy. Real freedom is freedom from the prison of our thinking, when we can really break out of our identification with thought, when we can really be, see, mother says appearances are false. But where are these appearances? They are in our thoughts, right? If to every thought I can really say, however true you seem, somewhere you're false, and not take it very seriously, then I am free. Because so long as I'm compelled to take my thoughts seriously, I'm in the prison of my own mental constructs. There is no freedom. Once you have seen, you know who you are, and once you have established your true identity, you have the key to true transformation. What is true identity? I'm not here, this Nam Roop Gun. I am the cosmos. Each one of us is a cosmos that has got individualized. That's who I really am. I'm an eternal consciousness. I am not this momentary thing that flickers in and out of existence. We read, we try to understand, we explain, we try to know. But a single, the wisdom of this 14-year-old, what she wrote in her test, if we can make it our own, whenever we are upset by anything, the question in the test was, how would you deal with inadequacy? But anything that upsets us, it's upsetting me because I think I'm this limited being in the moment. but actually I'm eternal, I'm infinite. In the vastness of my infinity, this is a little blip. It doesn't matter. And we can be free of that upset. Sometimes I really think these children are born with something remarkable. I mean, I learn so much from them all the time. So, the first question is how to have the experience to go within yourself. That is the first step. So, we mothers saying you can't be free till you've had the experience of reversal of consciousness, where you're not seeing the world through your senses and your mind, but you're looking at life through a deeper vision. So, now how do we have this experience? So, mothers saying, first step is to go within. And then, once you have succeeded in going within yourself deeply enough to feel the reality of that which is within, to widen yourself. To widen yourself is to reclaim your infinity, even as a thought. To remind yourself, I'm an infinite consciousness. I'm the, Sri Aurobindo said such a beautiful thing. Each of us is the individual regard of a universal consciousness. I hope I'm getting the words correct. Each of us is the individual regard of a universal consciousness. The whole cosmos is becoming conscious through me and looking at the world. The whole cosmos is becoming conscious through each of you and looking at the world. So, to widen is to reclaim your infinity, not to get stuck in the prison of your limited small ego. And the ego doesn't even exist. That's the greatest tragedy. It's just a mental construct. It's nothing real. It's just a bundle of thoughts telling you you exist as you do to your mind. It's not even real. And it's a prison.
They say, right, individualized ego, you need to develop that. And then, so Sri Aurobindo says
Yes, Sri Aurobindo does emphasize individualization. So maybe we see if we are listening to this and find it interesting. Somewhere all of us have individualized our consciousness to some extent, because otherwise we wouldn't. And of course, it's not complete. Individualization is an ongoing process, but sometimes universalization and individualization can go on simultaneously. To keep reminding ourselves of our infinity also helps us to come into our own and be our own person.
so our ego is an illusion actually.
It's a mental construct. It's like if I'm convinced there's a ghost in that curtain and the curtain is fluttering because of the wind. The ghost doesn't exist, but I'm convinced it exists. So ego is that ghost which doesn't exist, but I am convinced it exists. So these are the first two preparatory movements. What are the two preparatory movements? Go within and widen yourself. And these two things must be done in the greatest possible calm, peace, and tranquility. This peace, this tranquility brings about silence in the mind and stillness in the vital. This effort, this attempt must be renewed very regularly, persistently. This effort of two steps to go within and to widen yourself. And after a certain lapse of time, which may be longer or shorter, you begin to perceive a reality that is different from the reality perceived in the ordinary external consciousness. Then the chakshuscha chakshu, the eye within the eye, has opened. You start seeing things differently. Naturally, by the action of grace, the veil may suddenly be rent from within, and at once you can enter the true truth. But even when that happens, in order to obtain the full value and full effect of the experience, You must maintain in yourself a state of inner receptivity. And to do that, it is indispensable for you to go within each day. Okay. Now, these lines from Savitri, remember we read Mother says, you say, I touch this, I see this, I feel this, therefore it is true. But one who has the inner vision will say the opposite. I touch this, I see this, I feel this, therefore it's not true. So in Savitri, there's these lines on page 547. An endless no, N-O, to all that seems to be. This describes Savitri's condition when she's in the nirvanic silence. For her, there was this spontaneous truth. Something in her said an endless no to all that seems to be, to all appearances, and an endless yes to things ever conceived, to things ever unconceived. Thank you. An endless yes to things ever unconceived. What she's not conceiving with her senses, those were real to her. What she's conceiving with her senses, she's saying neti neti. This is not real. This is just an appearance. But what she can't see with her senses, her being is saying an endless yes, 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 you exist. An endless no to all that seems to be, an endless yes to things ever unconceived, and all that is unimagined and unthought. What a marvelous line! An endless no to all that seems to be, an endless yes to things ever unconceived. Okay, this is a beautiful passage um, by Georges van Rijkem. He's written this gorgeous biography of Sri Aurobindo, in my opinion, the best one I've read. It's called Beyond Man, available here if you want it. This is his autobiography. He shared his experience of meeting the mother. Okay. So Georges van Rijkem says, I had a vague idea of who the mother was. He has come from the West when the mother was in her body. I had a vague idea of who the mother was. And what do you do when you come in front of such a being? For in the meantime, I had seen people meditating on the wall at the seaside. I have seen people on their belly at the samadhi. Now, for Westerners, all this Shashtang Namaskar and all is. I had seen people in all postures of religiosity and meditation and all that. I felt very disoriented and insecure. So I went through the door of the mother's room, known to all of you. And what did I see? I saw that very thin arm of mother resting on the armrest of her chair, and I went in front of her. The rest I cannot tell because I don't know. And when I came to myself again, there was the mother smiling, giving me one packet of blessings and then another. Then, after some time, when I left the mother's room, it in double quotes, started working. What is this it? The mother's force in the body, in the spine, in the subtle body. And since I didn't want to be in the guest house with all those visitors at that time, I was a brand new visitor myself. I walked by the seaside for a couple of hours with tears in my eyes. Then I lay down with tears in my eyes. Something had happened. I'm such a naive fellow that everything that has happened in my life spiritually, I understood only long afterwards. And I'm happy for this because if you interpret things at the very moment, you distort them. So we have any experience, we immediately message someone, this happened, what does it mean? And we spoil the experience. We should just keep it to ourselves and allow mother to reveal the experience to us. And if we are very honest, there's a little bit of ego seeking in it. Wow, I experienced this. Now, if somebody I share it with endorses it, she'll also think I'm so great that I had this experience. But in that whole thing, we lose something very special because finally it's between mother and me. Nobody can really interpret it for me. Only she'll reveal to me from inside what it means. And I'm happy for this because if you interpret things at that very moment, you distort them. You give them a fixed shape in your thought. You know where I got the explanation of what happened between mother and me? On the 29th of January 1970. I got it in the Temple of Freemasons in Ghent, a town in Belgium. So all this happened and he returned to the West and he didn't tell anyone, he didn't interpret it, and he got the answer on his own years later. I had given a talk in the temple, and after the talk, I had conversations with many of the Freemasons. You know who Freemasons are. They were very interested. They were judges, professors, lawyers, priests, doctors. They were extremely interested. I'm assuming he'd given a talk on Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And when I told that experience, one of them said, this is the initiation. Maybe he shared his experience years later, and one of them said, this is the initiation. Later, I read that the mother said in one of her conversations, what I call initiation is when a person meets me and recognizes me. Many thousands could meet her, but they don't recognize her. But recognition is like I remember a couple of years back when I'd taken children to Pondi, there was one girl, we were at the Samadhi at night, and she sort of made me open my eyes and said, Miss, I'm very sorry to disturb you, but I'm having a very strange experience. So I said, what's happening? So she's saying, Miss, when I'm looking at the mother's picture, I'm crying and crying, but I'm not feeling one bit sad. And I can't understand this kind of crying because I've only cried in the past when I'm sad. And she told me later that her friends kept looking at her because they told her she was crying for a long time, but with a big smile on her face. So that was initiation for her. She doesn't know why, but when the inner being recognizes the mother, not just to meet her, and it's not that you have to meet her in the physical body, but all of us must have had our own initiation. When something in us recognized beyond knowledge, and that's the wisdom faculty in us which recognizes the mother. We don't recognize her. Sri Aurobindo says that the mother can be standing in front of you, but if you look at her only with your mind, you won't recognize her. Mother is crystallized spirit, so only the spirit can recognize spirit. Only when you have that connection within you do you recognize who she is. And that recognition is initiation. I suppose that in those very seconds of eternities, I have recognized something which I know from long ago, which is always with me. And I don't have that writing of his here, but later on he says that he's had a heart condition for a long time, and sometimes you fear what will happen to you. But he says, after meeting the mother, the fear just left me because meeting her is meeting your own eternity. And if you know you're eternal, what happens to the body doesn't scare you anymore because you're going to exceed the body anyways. So, this is again Georges van Rijkem. There was, to give you an example, this presence years after the mother had left her body. I was sitting near the Samadhi, depressed by my own limitations. Rings a bell, we all feel it. Depressed by my own limitations. It was evening, the time that ashramites and the group members came to the samadhi to do pranam. Normally, I sat against one of the posts around the samadhi, and on the ground fluttered a moth which probably had burnt one of its wings on a lamp somewhere. And there were all those trampling feet around the moth. And I said, see, this is exactly a picture of what I am. I am that moth in that condition. And at any moment, somebody may step on it and crush it. You won't believe it. No sooner had I thought that, a young girl came, took up the moth, and put it on the samadhi. There are things like that all of us could tell. All of us live in that presence. Many surely have nicer experiences to narrate than the ones I have had. So, this anecdote of Georges Van Rijkrem is so significant to us. So many times we feel worthless, we feel we are no good. But that is looking at appearances, and all appearances are false. And sometimes the wisdom that life is speaks to us in the language of appearances. It was the mother's way of saying that you think you're this worthless moth, and you think that people are going to step on you and crush you. But you are so precious to me that your real place is not below people's feet, it's on the samadhi. This is the way Mother speaks to us all the time if we have the vision to register and listen. Okay, there's this beautiful thing Sri Aurobindo has said. I loved it. I mean, it was one thing that I read and it lit up my whole day, because all of us want to remember Mother all the time, isn't it? Because the times when we remember her, everything is beautiful and lit up, but we keep forgetting her. No, that's our state. So Sri Aurobindo says, when the whole being is filled with the Mother's presence, you will remember her automatically, and you can by no means forget her. There's an ocean of meaning in this one sentence. See, we are made up of many parts: the mental, the vital, the physical, the subconscious. And in our psychic, there's a constant remembrance of the mother. The mother says the psychic being is like the sunflower, constantly turned towards the sun, which is the divine. But our mental, our vital, our subconscious, it has many other programming. And uh, it said that when everything in us, right from the mental, vital, subconscious, everything is filled with the mother's presence, then it will be impossible to forget her. Because what comes into our conscious memory is what's recorded in different parts of us. No, what's the programming in our subconscious, in our vital, in our mental. Now, Mother is the divine force, the divine consciousness. When she has filled all parts of our being, then naturally what is recorded will come up. Then we won't have to make an effort to remember the Mother. We'll just remember her all the time. Such a beautiful sentence. When the whole being is filled with the Mother's presence, then you will remember her automatically, and you can by no means forget her. And then there's this poem, Everywhere. From inner spaces, I call you, sweet love. You descend a cascade of light from above. This is a regular experience. We call to the Mother, and she descends a cascade of light from above. Asking for your touch everywhere. I want you to touch me not only in my psychic, I want you to touch me everywhere. Asking for your touch everywhere, I lie quenched beyond all care. till the untouched parts call out to you. So you're touching me in certain parts, but some parts of me are untouched by you. And they call out to you from their light burnt brethren, taking the cue. So there are parts of me which don't feel you, but there are other parts which do. So those are the light burnt brethren, siblings. Brethren are siblings. Till the untouched parts call out to you, taking from their light burnt brethren, taking the cue. You smile and say, not yet. The wooden parts is still wet. Can wet wood catch fire? There are parts of us which are still wet, not ready to be burnt by the mother's fire. You smile and say, not yet. The wooden parts is still wet. Unperturbed in contentment, I wait at the overhead lucent gate. So I'm waiting at the overhead shining gate till bit by bit you make me pure gold. Then nothing in me will escape your fold. That's the aspiration. I'm waiting till you make all parts of me capable of being filled with you. So unperturbed in contentment, I wait at the overhead lucent gate, till bit by bit you make me pure gold. Then nothing in me will escape your fold. And then, as Sri Aurobindo says, we will remember her automatically and by no means forget her. So now we end with a passage from Savitri. It's page 295, 296. The sole omnipotent goddess ever wailed. Who's this sole omnipotent, all powerful goddess always wailed? Who? The mother, of whom the world is the inscrutable mask. So beautiful. It sums up what we've talked. Mother, everything is the mother, but all appearances are a veil cast on her face. The sole omnipotent goddess ever veiled, of whom the world is the inscrutable mask. The ages are the footfalls of her tread, because Mother says wherever and whenever there's been a possibility of manifesting consciousness, have been there. So ages are the footfalls of her tread, their happenings the figure of her thoughts, and all creation is her endless act. Such a beautiful line. All creation is the mother's endless act. It's not divorced from her. Nothing is outside her. His spirit, his is Ashwapati. This is a time when he's communicating with the Divine Mother. Ashwapati is Savitri's father. His spirit was made a vessel of her force, mute in the fathomless passion of his will. He outstretched to her his folded hands of prayer. So he's feeling the mother in inner realms. So his spirit was made a vessel of her force, mute, he's fallen silent, there's no thought. In the fathomless passion of his will, he outstretched to her his folded hands of prayer. Then, in a sovereign answer to his heart, a gesture came as of worlds thrown away. So he's aspiring, he's full of aspiration. A gesture came as of worlds thrown away. And from her raiment is a garment. The clothes you're wearing are your raiments. And from her raiments lustrous mystery raised, one arm half parted the eternal veil. What is the eternal veil? Huh?
Your thoughts and everything.
The appearances of the world behind which the mother hides. The world we see is a veil on the body of the mother. So, a light, one arm half parted the eternal veil. A light appeared still and imperishable, attracted to the large and luminous depths of the ravishing enigma of her eyes. He saw the mystic outline of her face. He sees the mother. It's a time when he's face to face with the mother. And her eyes are a ravishing enigma. An enigma is a mystery. Ravishing is something that amazes your senses with its beauty. So, of the ravishing enigma of her eyes, he saw the mystic outline of her face, overwhelmed by her implacable light and bliss, an atom of her illimitable self, mastered by the honey and lightning of her power, tossed towards the shores of her ocean ecstasy, drunk with a deep golden spiritual wine. So, this ecstasy that you feel is like a deep golden spiritual wine. It's intoxicating. He cast from the rent stillness of his soul a cry of adoration and desire, and the surrender of his boundless mind, and the self giving of his silent heart. He fell down at her feet, unconscious, prone. He lost consciousness. So I'm reading this whole passage without explanation, just feel it. The sole omnipotent, the sole omnipotent goddess ever veiled, of whom the world is the inscrutable mask. The ages are the footfalls of her tread, their happenings the figure of her thoughts, and all creation is her endless act. His spirit was made a vessel of her force, mute in the fathomless passion of his will. He outstretched to her his folded hands of prayer. Then, in a sovereign answer to his heart, a gesture came of worlds thrown away, and from her raiment lustrous mystery raised, one arm half parted the eternal veil. A light appeared still and imperishable, attracted to the large and luminous depths of the ravishing enigma of her eyes. He saw the mystic outline of her face, overwhelmed by her implacable light and bliss, an atom of her illimitable self, mastered by the honey and lighting of her power, tossed towards the shores of her ocean ecstasy, drunk with a deep golden spiritual wine. He cast from the rent stillness of his soul a cry of adoration and desire, and the surrender of his boundless mind, and the self giving of his silent heart. He fell down at her feet, unconscious, prone. So, to sum up what we explored today, the title of the talk was Truth Beyond All Lies. So, one way or the other, our thoughts are lying to us. It's not that thoughts are an entity which is willfully lying to us, but thoughts are mental constructs which are based on appearances. Appearances themselves are false. So, that line in Savitri, an endless no to all that seems to be, and endless yes to all that is ever unconceived. So, whenever our thought is telling us this is not right, why did he behave like this? Why did this happen? We live this talk when we say, but it's only a thought. It may not be the truth. And you arrest it there itself before it takes you on that roller coaster. It builds that whole unhappy narrative which brings you down. Just arrest it. It's only a thought. It may not be the truth. The truth is that everything is the divine wearing a mask. I am seeing the mask and building narratives. My narratives can't be true. Instead, let me remind myself what the mother has said. Everything is me wearing a silly mask. Don't get caught up in the mask. Don't build stories about the mask. It's only a mask. So, to constantly remember, my thoughts aren't true, the divine is true. And beyond the appearances woven by thoughts, there's the beauty of God's body everywhere in the universe. So, to just constantly remember this. Hmm?
Does that also mean to have equanimity?
Yes, equanimity can't really come unless we have this God vision of everything. You can't be equal to everything till you hold in yourself the equalizing factor in everything. God is the great equalizer, He equalizes everything. So, till we don't bring that equalizer into the equation of our thoughts, we cannot be equal to things. Okay, with that, let's end with 3 ohms.